Hi, everybody, and welcome to the thematic LinkedIn Live series. This is the second in our series, so thanks very much for joining us. My name is Alana Dell. I'm from Thematic, and like any good CX program, you learn what worked in the past and apply that to improve it. And this time, what we've done is really made sure that this discussion is about the needs of our audience. And one of the questions that we often get in our discussions with our customers, with our prospects is, how do I've got a need to apply customer experience. How do I get buy-in from my leaders? And there are a number of other questions that we get along the same kind of lines. And we've housed that under a broader category called the ROI of CX. And we're here to answer those questions today. So I am lucky to be joined by Lynn Hunsaker and Paul Stevenson. And I'll get you to introduce yourselves. Lynn, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I've been in this field for a long time, ever since I got my degree, starting out in strategic planning of a packaging company, B2B, and then going on to a semiconductor equipment company in the quality department and leading customer experience company-wide in both cases, starting out as voice of the customer manager and becoming chief customer officer.
Great. Thank you. So clearly a lot of experience there. Thank you. And then, of course, we'll share later Lynn's with Clear Action, and we'll share the details of how you can get in touch with Lynn and Paul later. Paul, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Paul Stevenson. Similar to Lynn, I've kind of been involved in some shape or form in building either market segmentation platforms or deeper understanding of customers since day dot, probably about 30 years in total, which is showing my age, but I still love it. I've worked across most industries, sectors, come across most of the problems that all of you face, but I've mainly worked most of my time on sort of what we now call client side, but more lately moved into supporting and helping people like yourselves and businesses really take that leap forward and building better customer experiences, particularly more so in the later years across the digital space, which is important, especially for the, kind of younger generations coming through that are using digital channels.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both. And to respect everybody's time here, we're just going to go straight into a discussion because we know in preparation for this that we just got so excited in discussion ourselves. So we're really keen to get started. The first question that I have for you both is, why is showing the value of customer experience so hard?
Want to go first, Lynn?
Well, it seems like customer experience is touchy-feely, not very tangible, like an actual product or something like that. But then how do you connect that to money? Well, it's not so hard, actually, if you're thinking about what causes money in the first place. Money comes from customers. So they're the horse, and they drive your cart, right? They pull your cart of investors and employees and fund everything. So as you make things easier for customers to give you money and make things smooth so that they don't have to take away money, meaning cost to serve, well, it's all right there, right? So everything you're doing that's helping them to give money more freely, quicker, and more is related to customer experience, and everything you're doing to reduce the friction and reduce cost to serve is also about customer experience.
So you're indicating there for me, what I'm hearing from you is that it's about turning this customer experience, the value of customer experience, into a monetary value, and how we can show that it's easier to get money from customers. Are we talking about revenue generation when you talk
Sure.
about that?
Sure, because everything you do that makes it more attractive to go with your brand than the others is all around an improvement of the customer experience. Customers have needs. That's why they buy something. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, well, I wonder who I can give my money to, you're only going to be solving certain needs you have, and money just happens to be part of that. So customers are thinking about their needs. Customers are buying things because they have a certain goal or a certain, something they're trying to get fulfilled that we call a job to be done. So the more that you serve that need, job to be done, and also get yourself out of the way in terms of actually matching the expectations that you've built up with that customer, well, then it's a good experience. So there's two ways to measure it. How are you increasing that attractiveness and in filling their need? And how are you reducing your costs in terms of serving what you promised?
Mm. Thanks. Paul, I know that in one of our earlier discussions, you mentioned the value of the ability of showing value quickly. So there you can actually, in terms of making it so hard, there was a story about Metcash. I remember you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share both. But firstly, I agree with Lynn. I think, but the core thing here, let's call it what it is customer experience. We all get very passionate about it, right? But sometimes we lack a bit of commercial nous. And and what I mean by that is we rely heavily on what we see as existing customer metrics, NPS, CSAT, all those sort of things. And then when you're building business cases, there's often a lot of change required at a lot of cost that takes a lot of time to deliver. You're going to try and change NPS. Good luck. You've got 12 months, maybe more to move NPS sometimes, depending on what you're working on. Other metrics take a long time to filter through. Your CFO and other commercial people in sales and so forth, they don't have that patience. So what I'm finding is, particularly in the digital age and where it's relevant, demonstrate value quickly. So if you're wanting to change a process, think of ways in which you can demonstrate that's going to deliver value. In the case of Metcash, we were building a loyalty program, a digital loyalty program for the alcohol division. That's in total, that's something like 1,500 stores. Now, if I was to try and build that for 1,500 stores, there's millions of dollars of cost to be able to grow that at scale. There's there's hundreds of different point of sale platforms. There's lots of people have to be involved. There's lots of change management involved. So, hey, what do we do? Why don't we do a trial? Why don't we build something clickable, a prototype, a design prototype that we can build in 6 weeks, that we can test within another 4 weeks of that, where we can have results over 3 months or even 2 months if it's possible. Then we can demonstrate that the business case and the ROI that we're putting in place delivers not only NPS, but delivers the sort of experience that Lynn was talking to, that we can then create a scale opportunity, and you can communicate that upwards. Then you get more support and engagement in the organization, instead of, in theory, want to do all this change all at once over a year that's going to involve everyone that's got a day job. I just think it takes that little bit more commercial discipline and the idea of generating value more quickly than we're used to doing.
So that sounds a bit like also you're going to need to set expectations with your leaders around what it is we're first going to do, that we need to show what's working. We're not trying to change everything. We want to change a project and prove that that's working. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, in the case of, Metcash, everybody wanted a loyalty program. And I was like, well, why do you want a loyalty program? And who's it going to do? What is it going to do? What kind of experience is it going to set up? Is it going to help consumers? Is it going to help suppliers? Is it going to help retailers? And how do we validate those assumptions quickly? And I think that is the foundation, I think, of generating cultural buy-in to CX initiatives.
Okay, that brings us to a next point, which is when we're talking about proving the value of CX, what is customer experience then? Because it sounds like it's covering.
Well, exactly what I wanted to point out. I view customer experience not as just micro moments, because it's actually cumulative. From the first point that I came in contact or had a concept of a certain type of service or product or brand, well, everything from that moment becomes my experience. Last year, 10 years ago, 10 years in the future. So I think that customers don't really have time to engage with every brand that they buy from, and they don't really want to. I think that customers want to fulfill their needs, and they'll buy into whatever you are proposing in your value proposition, right? So you're setting expectations right there. You need to also be aware of any other expectations they have through your sales conversations, through surveys, or whatever you might do to have a better understanding of customers' expectations. Then the rest of your company exists simply to fulfill customer expectations. It all really boils down to that. So if you have a great value proposition that excites customers or gets them preferring your brand versus other options they have, and then you deliver to it, well, there's actually no need for further CS, customer service, customer success necessarily. And it's a great experience. I'm more likely to recommend brands where I didn't have any need post-sale. Now, there are certain types of products and services where you need post-sale service, or that is actually the product that you're selling. So, there's different situations. But I view the customer experience as how aligned are you in your corporate strategy, your corporate execution of things among all parties, your suppliers and alliances, partners included, to deliver on what's being promised. So you either need to be what I call chiropracting, straightening out your expectation setting and be more proactive in communicating any changes or modifying, people's expectations so that it's realistic, and or making sure that you're solving any gaps in the delivery to those expectations. That's what customer experience excellence is.
Mm-hmm. So, what question that's just popped up that relates to that, and if I can just insert it in terms, the question is, as you can see there, what are the roadblocks in showing the ROI in CX? And if we're talking about it in terms of the expectations and the related to that is another question that's come up is, if you're showing ROI, what are you showing? What kind of metrics? How are you showing ROI? Paul, you mentioned around a particular project with this program, but if you're looking at overarching, if you can try and compare one project to another, how are you showing the ROI of CX across projects?
Yeah, look, I mean, I can give you some examples. I think it changes, actually. I think it depends on the project. In the case of the project I mentioned to you, which was really, if you think about the customer loyalty and the experience of that loyalty program integrated into an e-commerce application. So the ROI on that basis is not just NPS and customer satisfaction, it's retailer satisfaction, it's supplier satisfaction. And the question goes down to, it actually touches on reporting. So when you're going through the process of pulling this project together, what are the reporting measures that are going to be most important to the various audiences that you're pleasing? Because in this case, in the case there's multiple audiences. So it's not just an end consumer, it's a B2B application as well. It's providing, so the reporting and infrastructure that you set up at the early stages needs to meet the needs of the end user of that. So if in this case, if you're building more information around what people are buying from a particular retailer, then you better be able to pull together the reports to demonstrate to those suppliers that you're delivering that data so that they can then make changes to things like personalization, because you can't personalize it for an individual and a consumer unless you're getting the right data through. So I think agreeing on those metrics really early on and upfront and being really clear about them and giving some idea of the duration required for that to deliver those details, I think is really critical. And I agree with Lynn, by the way. I think it's really important to reinforce this. Customer experience has become really ubiquitous, like it's everything, but really it is the manifestation of a brand promise. If you make a promise as a brand, you better deliver it, right? So wherever you're delivering to that promise, that is the manifestation. There's a great saying that I've stuck with through my career. I've known this was about 20 years ago. Somebody said to me, a brand is what it does, not what it says it does. It's really important. And I think the manifestation of that is what we're doing in practice. But just to answer quickly again, just what you were saying there, it is on a project by project basis. And I think you have to adjust those metrics depending on where that project sits and who it influences and who's interacting with that process or procedure or capability that you're building.
Yeah, awesome, Paul. I love that quote. I would just say that if you're trying to measure it, it's easier to measure the cost side than it is the revenue side. There's a lot of complications with the revenue side. Part of it is, did you have an acquisition, a merger, enter a new market? All kinds of things can modify the revenue. Also, there's a lot of reasons why a customer may have various behaviors, even though they are willing to recommend you. Are they really recommending you? Did they really buy more because of it? Are they having other situations in their life or their business that might be shaping that? So it's kind of tricky on the upside, although it can be done. I found it a lot easier to prove to executives how we're saving the company tremendously in costs by getting to the root cause of the pebbles in customer shoes. So you look at what are the prevalent issues coming into whatever area of your company, longer sales cycles to customer service, to surveys, to whatever, and prioritize that way. Do a Pareto chart, so you're working on the 80-20 rule. Do a 5 whys, you're really getting to the root cause. And this is what we did with every single functional area, every account team worldwide, every line of business. And in the second or third year, I had finance and facilities and those guys tapping me on the shoulder. Can we have our workshop? And so we had every single group in the company working on a pebble in the customer's shoe that they were contributing to. That meant that every group had 2 plans per year. We had over 100 plans going on simultaneously to significantly make changes for our customers. That's a tremendous amount of ROI right there, because we were freeing up our own resources. We were freeing up our customers to do more in their business, to be able to buy more from us. And it was just a gift that kept on giving in so many ways. So that's where I like to focus the executives' attention. Maybe a little bit of a longer thing than a quick win, but those are massive wins.
Mm. So you're really sort of, how do you get these organizations to get interested then in removing the pebble from the shoe?
Yeah, so the first key is to be curious about those organizations, so you get to know them, what makes them tick, who are those people, what are their hot buttons, what are the time pressures and cycles that they have for their field, and speak their language. So that's one thing. I always kept a crib sheet about all of the different groups in the company, and talked about it with my team in a extended staff meeting about every 6 weeks. We went through some change management templates that aren't about sad, angry, that type of change. It's about stakeholder management and making them more, helping them to make change happen. So you're trying to remove the roadblocks and so on. So the second thing is to focus them on the costs, right? So you want to show them how much more budget they could be having. Everyone wants more budget. Everyone wants more because that means they could hire more, or have more interesting projects if they could afford this and that, or maybe have more salary increases or profit sharing. Everyone wants more budget. Yeah, everyone's interested in increased revenue too, but that's not personal. Budget is personal. So we talked about that money going down the drain or opportunities going out the window. That was the way to hook into every group. So there's a lot of tailoring. Talk about personalization externally. You need to be doing that internally. So it's high usage of experience insights, the comments in particular.
Can I just say, Lynn, what Lynn you just touched on there is brilliant. Like, I think that's one of the golden learnings I've had in getting stuff done in organization. Because let's be honest, we can all talk theoretically about customer experience, but what brings you joy is when you actually get something done. And more often than not, it can be on savings, the things that you save money on. I found in my career, we found savings through technical changes, ubiquitizing technology instead of having all the tech all stacked on top of each other and different tech and lots of tech debt. By removing that and finding new ways of doing what you're trying to achieve that delivers a better outcome for the customer, actually saves the company money over the next 5 years, because they've been managed to negotiate a new deal with their technology vendors, right? And that money then can be leveraged, but it takes commercial discipline to be able to do that. I just want to touch on Frank, because Frank's mentioned, Frank's just touched on a really good thing here, because I got the same background, Frank. And you know what? We obsess too much on it. Like, I think at the end of the day, there is no real surefire way of getting all your metrics, because everybody's got lots of passion and bias about, brand saliency and, NPS or customer effort or whatever it may be. And I think at the end of the day, it's about alignment across the group. It's alignment at an executive level as to what are the important metrics, and alignment within a project. Because one of the mistakes we all make is assuming the executives have signed off, that everybody else in the organization is just going to start going, yay, we're going to do everything we possibly can to deliver this project for you, Frank, Paul, whatever. Actually, you have to go through that process again to make sure that you uncover all the internal bias that sits within different departments and different divisions, to understand and make sure that you're all aligned to a certain set of priorities and ROI measures. And I think then you get traction, because these are the people that actually do the work. The executive team don't do the work. You need the support and buy-in of people that do the work in the organization, all the middle managers. That's where it all stops, right? So I think it's really important to touch on those things and make sure you've got alignment at an ROI level with them.
Yeah, that does sound like what Frank's talking about, that kind of media matrix or project matrix. And actually takes us to one of the next questions is, if you're looking at a CX program, how do you set it up for success? And it sounds like it's involved with the stakeholder discussion.
Yeah, so setting up for success, you need to be clear about what your executives are aiming for, how your marketing is selecting customers and segmenting. What is business development doing in terms of all of that, and establishing your ideal customer profile, because those are the most important customers that everyone is going for in sales, marketing, and finance. So for customer experience to be doing something else, or to be on a different trajectory, already creates a silo. So you want to be on the same page with where your company is going. In fact, all of the pillars in your strategic plan, what your corporate stretch goals are, all of them have customer experience baked in, because they're all about being viable for customer growth, customer revenue growth. So I try to tap into that as the first step, and then position the purpose of customer experience, as opposed to CS, as being an ally to every single person that reports to the CEO, to help them be more growth-oriented, more efficient, and more aligned, because it's all about brand integrity. That's what we're driving for, is having no gaps between what we promised and then what we delivered. It's pretty simple. I don't know any executives that wouldn't want to have that simplicity made true in their company.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think Brian's made some good points here as well. I think, Lynn, you said the same, but to me, you have to have a really good vision of the future. I call it a future backwards. It's actually an Amazon way of thinking, which is really clever, actually. If you've ever done a future backwards workshop, it's really worthwhile doing. What do you want the future to look like that delivers to your brand promise? Where are you today? And then you break that down into, okay, so now what can I get done over the next 12 months? What can I get done over the next month? What can I get done over the next second month? I think Brian mentions where you do very targeted kind of CX initiatives to demonstrate value, because all the while, which you probably is coming through, you have to keep communicating the value. You have to keep communicating to everyone how this is demonstrating and delivering to the brand initiative that you set out, because people get apathetic after a while. They lose energy for stuff, because this stuff is hard. It requires changes in policy, process, procedures. So I think you have to constantly, as a CX leader today, you have to over communicate. You have to communicate daily, weekly, all through your different stakeholders. Make sure you've still got them on board. But I go back to demonstrate value quickly. That should be your prerogative in the organization, because if you don't demonstrate value quickly, these things run out of steam. And it only takes a change of management or a shake up in a corporate, and all of a sudden you're building another set of PowerPoint slides again, and then you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I've found that one way to really keep people engaged and energized for the long run is to use patterns in customer data to keep introducing new ideas, new thoughts, new discoveries to management. Like when this happens, customers are 3 times more likely for that, and so on. So when you're really making use of customer comments, which I call almost free VOC because customers are giving you comments daily, that can really change things. Also using multivariate analysis and so on to stimulate people internally. It's all about what's going on with customers.
So just building on that, there's some customer experience management. There's a lot of the automation side of things, using the feedback and creating an automation process. How do you get an investment case? How do you build an investment case to use the feedback or the customer data to improve CX?
Yeah, well, that's actually, the primary value of a customer service organization is that they are collecting almost free VOC, but it's not being harvested, right? So it could be mined, it could be fed into AI and so on to help understand these new patterns. And then that should be used for every growth effort in the company. So how are you sharing that with people who are doing business models, people who are trying to figure out who the ideal customer profile is? Have we actually married that to the cost to serve so that we know who the real ideal customer is? Are we just going for blindly some lucrative vertical? Are we using customer insights for every cost containment effort so that we're not inadvertently shooting ourselves in the foot? All kinds of things like that. So you can start to just play around with some numbers in terms of what happened the last time that we introduced a product or entered a new market where we did not base it on customer insights. What were the costs with that? And so you can play around with costs and revenue just to show one aspect. You don't have to have complete data or down to the penny. You just need to share with people based on this one aspect. Here's the tip of the iceberg, but look at the value or look at the cost. And then you start to get that conversation with people clarifying and adding to it if they're wanting that degree of clarity. Otherwise, just getting off the status quo and doing something about it. And that's how you get ROI, is you have to make change happen. You can't just be doing the same old thing and think that magically, because you're measuring NPS, because you're doing journey maps or whatever, that there's a black box and magically revenue increases from that. You have to be driving something different for customers to experience so that they reward you more richly.
Great. Okay, well, folks, we've got 1 minute left. I think if we had one comment left as the last one, another one from Brian.
I respond to Finya because I think that's a brilliant question.
Yeah.
This is when it comes to convincing executives, how do you balance the need for short-term results with the long-term benefits of customer experience investment? I think the issue is not all executives think alike. So it goes back to Lynn's point on stakeholder management. I can guarantee you a bunch of 7, 6, 7, 8 executives all think very differently about short-term, long-term. If you're driving sales, are you that bothered about cost to sale? I'm not sure you are. So there's you might be responsible for commercial outcomes, but you're driving for a year-long target. You're in that role for what? 1, 2, 3 years? So your bonus as an executive is directly linked to very short-term things. 3 years is like whatever, like what can we get done in the next sort of couple of months? So I think aligning with different leaders, even with the CEO, to understand them as an individual and what they're expecting is going to make the difference between making or breaking CX initiatives and support in the organization. Very much down to stakeholder management and relationship building.
Great. Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up. It's actually just sort of starting to get into our stride, but definitely much more to focus on. So thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Paul. I look forward to version 2. And thanks very much. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
I'll go into the comments and add my written comments to each one.
Yeah, same one. I will too.
Yeah, and keep an eye out. We'll be sharing a summary of everything that happened discussed today. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you next time.